If you still believe that Rolex watches or gold rings are a waste of money, you're being terribly misled. These aren't just luxury items. They're asset insurance in a world that's crumbling day by day. The poor may see these items as meaningless, but the rich understand they hold the weapons that shield them from financial destruction in the future. What you consider a waste is actually a strategic investment, one that not everyone has the foresight to recognize. Will you wake up before it's too late? Watch this video to uncover the secret that's making the rich wealthier and discover how you can start changing your life right now. You probably heard the saying, if you think like the poor, you'll never become rich. And it's true. If your mindset is confined to the narrow perspective of the poor, becoming wealthy is an impossible dream. We all know people who are struggling. They're everywhere. Today, we want to share something with you. Imagine the gold Rolex Daytona watches. Most young people today may not even know what Daytona means, but this watch once belonged to Paul Newman. There are even people who own 4 or sometimes more of these Daytona watches, each worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. You've probably heard the phrase, "what a waste," many times. This is the mindset of the poor. They can't understand why someone would spend such a large sum, like $50,000 on a watch, or why gold rings or other luxury items are worth owning. In their eyes, it's all just showy excess, a meaningless waste. But what they fail to see is that, in those moments, the wealthy are grasping a way of navigating the world that they can't perceive. The truth is, they're seeing something others can't, a way to protect their assets from devaluation, a way to face the collapse they know is coming. You might not understand this, but the way American politicians are addressing this issue is by printing money. And for the wealthy, this isn't a wasteful act. It's asset protection, a calculated strategy. The national debt in the U.S. is skyrocketing every day. That number is constantly climbing. And as we watch the currency lose value, those expensive items become a means of safeguarding real value. Because when the currency devalues, tangible assets like watches, gold, land, and luxury goods can retain their worth. The poor may think this is all a waste, but the rich understand this is an investment in their own security in a world that's changing every day. They see something the poor can't. The knowledge of how the economy works, how government actions, decisions by politicians, and money printing can erode the value of our currency. They know that the national debt is soaring, and without a strategic plan, they'll pay a heavy price. The rich don't just get wealthier by investing in expensive things. They also understand that the economy's development plays a crucial role in protecting the value of their assets. That's why they buy these items. These expensive watches, gold rings, not to show off, but to preserve their wealth during a time when currency devaluation is a major threat. They understand these aren't just ordinary possessions. They're valuable assets that protect them from inflation and economic collapse. That's why they're willing to spend large sums to own them. You might not get it, but if you have vision, you'll see this isn't wasteful. This is protection, an investment in their financial stability for the future. And when you understand this, you'll realize that in a world full of uncertainty, luxury goods aren't a sign of excess. They're a smart financial strategy. This understanding, this long-term vision of the economy, is what the poor lack. They only see what's in front of them, the pointless spending, without realizing there's a deeper reason behind every decision the wealthy make. And that's the difference between the poor and the rich. The poor only see what's happening now, while the rich see what's coming in the future. And with that, they know how to prepare for those changes. They don't let the devaluation of currency or the instability of the economy weaken their assets. Instead, they find ways to protect their wealth, preserve its value, and always stay one step ahead of unpredictable market shifts. That's why, in their eyes, a $50,000 watch or a gold ring isn't a waste. It's part of a strategy to safeguard assets in a volatile world. Remember, while we may look at these luxury items with admiration or even criticism, those who own them see their true value. They're not just expensive possessions. They're symbols of financial intelligence, of an understanding of how the world works, and ways to preserve wealth during an era of growing instability. But there's a major problem with printing money. The rich get richer, while the poor and the middle class get poorer. According to Gresham's law, when bad money enters a system, good money will go into hiding. Let's imagine a 50-cent coin, a Kennedy half-dollar from 1964, and a $10 bill. So when bad money enters a system, which is the bad money, 50 cents or the $10 bill? Gresham's law tells us that when bad money appears, good money disappears. The $10 bill is the bad money, and the 50-cent coin is the real money. Now, when I show this to people, most of them ask, which one? I say, which would you prefer, the $10 bill or the 50-cent coin? The average person, whether young or old, will choose the $10 bill. But that's the bad money. The smart and wise people will look for the real money. And the reason this happens is that every time the government prints money, starting from 1971, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, every time they print more money, the rich get richer. I'll say it again, when the government prints money, what they're doing all around the world right now, the rich get richer because their assets increase in value. Of course, money isn't the only thing increasing in price here. Foods, eggs, and countless other things are skyrocketing as well. The rich get richer because they hold real money, while the assets of the poor and the middle class are silently eroded as inflation is slowly killing them. Look at America today. Inflation is killing people right now. It takes more and more of those worthless $10 bills to buy a 50-cent coin. So, do you understand Gresham's law now? When bad money enters a system, the $10 bill is the bad money, and the 50-cent coin is the real money, and it will disappear from circulation. The 50-cent coin is far more valuable than the $10 bill. Now, we're talking about why the rich buy assets. Why do the rich buy real estate? Because when they use debt, that debt is essentially bad money used to purchase a real house. The bad money loses value, but the house increases in value. This is why smart people, those who truly understand how the economy works, know how to use debt to build wealth. They're not afraid of debt because they understand that when used correctly, debt can be a powerful tool for creating wealth. But the key is that they don't use debt to splurge on unnecessary things. They use it to acquire real assets, assets that hold long-term value. These assets not only maintain their value, but actually grow over time. Meanwhile, cash, the thing we think is the most valuable, continues to lose its value, especially during periods of inflation. That's why intelligent people look for ways to turn debt into an opportunity to buy real estate, land, and other tangible assets. To them, these assets are a way to protect their wealth against the devaluation of currency. Gresham's law, a simple but incredibly important economic rule, illustrates this. When bad money enters a system, good money will go into hiding. This means that when the government prints too much money, devaluing the currency, the smart people won't hold on to cash. They don't expect that money to remain valuable for long. Instead, they convert their cash into real assets, things that, even if money loses value, will either hold their value or appreciate. Real estate, land, gold, these physical assets maintain their worth. So, when bad money enters the system, when inflation rises and the currency devalues, the rich have the opportunity to buy more assets. They don't just buy real estate, they expand their investments into other areas with long-term value. This creates a cycle of profit, helping them grow wealthier. Meanwhile, the poor and middle class are not prepared for these shifts. They don't have access to these investment opportunities, and as inflation occurs, the value of the cash in their hands is quietly eroded. They can't invest in real assets to protect themselves from currency devaluation, and so they get poorer while the cost of living rises. They're killed by inflation with no way to defend themselves because they only have cash and don't know how to turn it into long-term, value-creating assets. On the other hand, the smart people know that no matter how the financial system fluctuates, they can maintain and grow their wealth by owning real assets like land, real estate, and long-term investments. Inflation may destroy the value of currency, but it can't destroy the value of assets if you know how to make the right choices. That's why the rich continue to get richer, while the poor and middle class get poorer. The poor still cling to cash and short-term spending, while the rich know how to transform money into real assets to protect and grow their wealth over the long term. If you don't want to be left behind, if you want to escape the trap of inflation and protect your wealth, you need to learn how to use debt wisely. Don't fear debt. Learn how to leverage it to buy valuable assets. Things that, no matter how the world changes, will hold their value and generate profits for you in the future. Only when you understand this principle can you truly take control of your finances and never let inflation destroy you. Gresham's Law has been around for thousands of years. So I present this coin from 1964, real silver. And I ask, would you rather own this 50-cent coin or this $10 bill? The rich will choose the 50-cent coin, while the poor and the middle class will pick the $10 bill. Let me explain. When you print money, the value of assets rises just like how the value of my apartment buildings increases. Oil prices go up and things like that. So, what happens when you print money? Everything starts to increase in price. Oil prices go up, but it's not just oil. Everything around you is affected. A chicken, for example, suddenly costs more. Why is that? They capitalize on the opportunities created by currency devaluation and changes in the economy to protect and increase their assets. So, financially savvy people don't just see the rising prices of goods, they also see the opportunity to invest in assets whose values won't be impacted by currency devaluation. That's why they own gold mines, real estate, and other valuable assets. The rich aren't wasteful. They don't indulge in unnecessary things. They focus on what truly holds value and can protect their wealth in any situation. They know that printing too much money will create inflation and cause prices to soar, but they also know how to maintain and grow their wealth despite these fluctuations. When you understand this, you'll realize that true wealth doesn't come from extravagant spending. It comes from the ability to invest in valuable assets, assets that can withstand currency devaluation and retain their worth over time. The rich own real gold. They can hold it, they can feel it. It's stored in a secret vault on a mountain not far from here. But the reason they buy that gold watch, let's say it costs $50,000, is because 5 years from now, how much will that gold watch be worth? Look, if gold is priced at $3,000 per ounce today, and it's expected to reach $15,000, that's a significant growth. The reason the wealthy buy luxury gold watches is not to show off to the world. They could easily buy a cheap Swatch or Timex or anything for $50. But when they purchase a gold Rolex, I'm not suggesting you should do the same. I'm just sharing the difference in mindset between the rich and the poor. The poor might think, oh, I'll just buy a cheap Apple Watch. No, a loyal Apple fan would never buy a solid gold Apple Watch because it doesn't fit their style. But when I buy this, I'm wearing my wealth on my wrist because it will only become more valuable as the government prints more money. The more money is printed, the higher its value grows. Not the watch itself, but the gold inside it. So, I just want to tell you, this is how the rich think. They've been trained and educated enough to carry this kind of mindset. And the poor? They want to buy something that looks nice, but is cheap. That's why they're poor. You know, some people buy expensive handbags. I don't want to say this outright, but that handbag will eventually end up in a Salvation Army thrift store. They have a Gucci bag or something, or Gucci shoes, or anything like that. But there's nothing wrong with wearing your wealth on your wrist or wearing a gold ring, because it's not about the ring, it's about the gold. If you understand this, the reason why the poor stay poor is that they think buying cheap things makes them seem like smart consumers. But in reality, they're just getting poorer. You know, people talk a lot about practicing mindfulness these days. Buddhism is about mindfulness. What are you telling yourself? Oh, I can live like this, or I can eat cheap food, or I can do this. Remember this. Here's the rule. When the government prints money, asset values increase. The rich get richer, and the poor get poorer. So when we print money, gas prices rise. The rich get richer because they own oil wells. The poor and the middle class get poorer because they have to fuel their cars. It also takes gas to transport chickens and toilet paper to the supermarket. This is what's happening in the US right now. And the biggest problem, as you know, is that most of our leaders, many of whom are teachers like Tim Walz, who ran against CA, he's a university professor or something. Governors don't mix with the poor. It's a waste of time. Because the poor want everything to be cheap, instead of things that hold real value. The issue isn't the price of an asset, but the long-term value of what you're buying today and in the future. To build wealth, you don't just need money, you also need a deep understanding of how the world works. The difference between the rich and the poor isn't in the assets they own, but in the wisdom they have and how they perceive and use resources. Remember, wealth doesn't come from frivolous spending. It comes from investing in lasting values. Learn from and apply the lessons of wealth and intelligence to change your future.